Hi everyone, Greg Heilman with the Sound on Stage. Here I guess we can call it the Sound and Beyond because I'm in Ashland, Oregon, home of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. But I do have a Seattle tie-in to my guests here that I'm going to be interviewing today. The first is Rosa Joshi, formerly of the Seattle U and the Asian American Theater and any number of organizations nationwide. I think.
Yeah, it was Northwest Asian American Theater. That was a long time ago.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and taking the time. I wanted to talk to you about your new role here as Associate Artistic Director at Oregon Shakespeare. Talk about the relationship that OSF has with Seattle, which seems to go back quite a ways, and a number of other things that I've got that I would like to pick your brain on. So first of all, thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your new role as Associate Artistic Director. I guess what prompted the move from Seattle? I guess I should say you're a director, an educator. So you've got a number of hats that you wear. And in fact, you won our award for your show Wolf Play last year at ACT, which you directed.
Yes.
But what led you to take a step away from that and move down here to Ashland and be part of this wonderful organization that is OSF?
I'd actually already moved away from Seattle. I moved to Los Angeles in 2022, and that move was based on leaving academia. So I'd been a professor at Seattle University for 22 years. And my kids are grown, and I was ready for a new adventure, and I decided that I wanted to go back to just being a freelance artist and just step away from administration, from academia. And so from 2022 to 23, I was freelance directing at different theaters, including in Seattle. So I was actually not living in Seattle when I came to direct in Seattle. And I was based in Los Angeles, so I was not looking for another administrative position until Tim Bond. And Tim Bond called me and asked if I would join him here, and because of my deep love for OSF and my deep admiration and respect for Tim Bond, I felt like it was something I should do, and felt like a call to serve and an exciting adventure. Also, so that I moved here in December of 23.
Well, your love of Shakespeare goes back a while, yes?
Yeah.
So you tell me a little bit about when that started?
Middle school. I fell in love with Shakespeare in middle school, and I've always, I studied in college as English lit classes mostly. I didn't really know how to do Shakespeare, I would say, if you can say there's a way to do Shakespeare, but I've always felt it was out of my reach because I felt like I didn't have the skill or the knowledge. And I graduated, it was after I graduated from college that I got an internship at the Juilliard School, and as the stage manager, and I was in rehearsals watching really incredible directors direct Shakespeare and classical work, and I sort of just learned through observation, and then was self-taught. I read a lot of books about it. I read the John Barton books. I watched those tapes, and then when I went back to graduate school, I knew that I really wanted to do classical work. And in my second year at Yale, I did a Shakespeare, and for my thesis, I did a Shakespeare, and then I moved to Seattle, and the first place I worked professionally really was New City Theater.
Okay.
When it was on in what was the Hugo House, in the old Hugo House, when it was a Victorian building house. But before it was the Hugo House, it was the home of New City Theater, and that's where I did my first Shakespeare in Seattle outdoors on the steps and in the garden.
Oh, nice.
Of New City Theater, and I did a couple of plays there. And then I worked at Northwest Asian American Theater for a few years, and then I went to Seattle U.
That was 22 years?
Yeah, in 2000.
Okay.
I started working at Seattle U, and I did Shakespeare there. And then in 2006, I did my first show with Upstart Crow Collective, which is the company that I'm one of the co-founders, co-artistic producers, along with Kate Wisniewski and Betsy Schwartz. And we did our first production in 2006 of an all-female version of King John. And then we continued to produce, we've produced 6 or 7 productions, including Titus Andronicus, and then we did a version of the Henry VI plays called Bring Down the House. We did Richard III. Then we did King John again here. We did Bring Down the House here right before the pandemic. It closed. It was one of those productions that closed like after 4 performances.
Ugh.
And now we're doing Coriolanus. So we did Coriolanus at Portland Center Stage, and it's coming to OSF
Great.
later this season.
Well, speaking of this season, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the challenges maybe, or just maybe the difference in how you approach your work as a director. You're focused on one show and all the aspects of that one show. Here we've got 10 shows in a season. You've got multiple stages and casts that sometimes are shared between shows in sort of a repertory kind of environment. How do you juggle that? I mean, what is the challenge like to put all of that together versus directing, or is it just birds of a different feather?
Well, one is more producing, and one is when you're directing, you're only involved in your own show and taking care of your own show. As an associate artistic director, I support the work of all the artists who come through. So one of the great things that I love about it is supporting artists to create their vision of the productions that they have. And so it's a different brain space, but you're using your experience as an artist because you understand the process that artists are going through. Mm-hmm. And so you want to help them navigate that process at this institution because, as you said, they're sharing casts, they're sharing spaces,
sure.
Right? And it's a very different rhythm to be building a show here than it is in a non-repertory theater where your rehearsal is straight through and then you go to tech. Here you may be in tech and then you're back in the rehearsal room and then you go back into tech because somebody else is in that space teching. So it's and so it's useful to have gone through that as a director so that you can support other directors who are going through that process also.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So do you feel like you've got some experience with OSF, but are you acclimated to the new position yet? Do you feel comfortable yet? Are you still learning things?
I think it takes probably a couple seasons to really feel like you know how it works, and also because this year we're doing 10 shows, but 4 of them are solo shows with very minimal scenery, and so the repping of that is not as complicated as it is when you do a full production.
Sure.
I mean, not that they're not full productions, they are,
right,
but
right.
Next year we will be doing 9 shows in full repertory, or we're working our way back to full repertory, I'd say. And so, what was your question again? Sorry.
It was around the challenges of we were talking about directing and producing multiple shows and multiple stages.
Yeah, you were asking whether I
if you've been acclimated. That was my last question.
Yeah, and I think it was intense. I came in the off season, so thank goodness, because then I was able to just. It's like having a fire hose of information and learning how things operate. And but because I also have been through it as a director, I really did understand the rhythm from a certain perspective. But being on the inside and seeing how the sausage is made is completely different. So yeah, I'm still learning a lot through this season.
I talked to a lot of artistic directors about the balance between filling seats, needing to fill seats for ticket revenue and things like that. So putting up popular shows or shows with name recognitions versus shows that a particular artistic director feels is important, may not have the recognition. And I imagine coming out of COVID, every theater is sort of bound by that, trying to navigate that balance in the right way. and I know that OSF has had some struggles coming out of COVID. Seems to be in a little bit better place now. Tim Bond is back. You mentioned Tim before. Is there do you find that you have to walk that balance between, hey, we want to put up something we know people are going to come to, and shows that maybe are important to you or to Tim or to somebody, the creative staff?
I think that every theater is dealing with that right now, so I don't think that OSF is different. I do think that OSF is a destination theater. So,
for sure.
So that there's, and I think that's why having shows in repertory is so important, so that when someone comes here, they can see up to sometimes 6 shows in one visit.
Yeah.
If they
depending
want
on the
to.
time of year. Yeah.
And I also think that yes, of course, you want to create programming that attracts audiences, but that doesn't have to be programming that is not important to you. Also, those two things don't have to be in opposition. So that I don't think there are shows that Tim looks at or that we look at and go, oh yeah, that's the show that'll bring people in versus the show that we really want to do. I think there's a balance, and we're like, oh yes, this is a show we know audiences are going to love, and we love it for these reasons also, so that it fits that. And then there may be a show that is less well known, so won't attract audiences in the same way, but is equally as compelling for us to do, and it's a way to introduce audiences to that work also. And the great thing is that while you're here, you might come because you know that you want to see Macbeth, because you've heard of Macbeth and you know Macbeth, but then you're here and you might say, oh, what's this Born with Teeth show? Oh, it looks interesting to me. I'm here, let me see it. And then you might, I call it like expanding your palette.
Sure.
Your artistic palette. And you have that ability to do that. And by putting those, like a very well-known play next to a lesser-known play, we love both of them, right? We're not doing Macbeth because we're like, oh, that hack of a play. It's a brilliant play. It should get done, right? So I think, yeah, you're smart about it, but you also always program for artistic excellence.
And one of the I use the word criticism lightly because if you consider the source, when you look at Facebook comments and you go down the social media rabbit hole.
See, I don't. I don't. But yes.
But I'm going to contradict what people are saying because I feel a lot of those are largely uneducated. There's a prevailing thought that OSF's, quote, getting away from Shakespeare. You have Shakespeare shows, but then there's other shows that don't at face value look like they have anything to do with Shakespeare. But then when you dive into them, a lot of them do.
Yeah.
I look at Madeline Sayet's Where We Belong last year that was here, and remember I saw that up at Seattle Rep, and that's not necessarily a Shakespeare play, but there's definitely tendrils of Shakespeare in there. And there's a lot of plays like that out there. Is there a conscious, I guess this comes back to philosophy of programming, is there a conscious effort to not just have, put up Shakespeare plays like Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet last year, but to also bring in shows that have ties to Shakespeare so that there's that heritage part of it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the great things about having plays in rotating rep and seeing actors in different shows is the ability for those shows to be in conversation with each other, and for classic plays, modern classics, as well as contemporary writers, to be in conversation with Shakespeare also, which is sort of venerated in this way, but then to literally be on the Bomer seeing Macbeth, and then in that same space seeing Liz Duffy Adams, a contemporary writer, writing about Shakespeare and Marlowe in the same space is kind of thrilling, because it's saying like this person, this woman who's writing today belongs on the same stage as Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't prize one more than the other, and we say they belong together on that stage. And I think that I don't see it as, I don't really understand the idea that we're getting away from Shakespeare. It's the core of what we do.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, because
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. And the shows I saw here last year and the ones that were here that I didn't get a chance to see, they all, I agree 100% with you, but I just wanted to make sure that we sort of
Yeah.
made that statement,
Yeah,
because
I think that, and I think that OSF has always been dedicated to both modern classics and contemporary work and new work, and I think that that's part of, again, being a destination theater,
Mhm.
is that there's a buffet of work to choose from, right? Like there's I think that's really important, because if it was only one thing, right, I don't think that it would be as enriching
Sure,
of an artistic experience.
sure. So what are you looking forward to most this season?
Well, I'm looking forward to directing Coriolanus, which I will be doing, and I'm really looking forward to the outdoors. Like, I'm thinking just now, because we're in this moment right now, and we're in tech for the outdoor shows, and I've never done an outdoor show myself, so I've been sitting in on tech rehearsals for that, and it's just magical, and I can't wait till someday I get to direct out there. And those we're doing Much Ado About Nothing and Jane Eyre in rep on the outdoor stage, and I think those are going to be a real treat.
Those open in June, correct?
Yes.
And do they all then run through October?
Yes, I think see, I'm still learning. That closes a little bit before the indoor spaces do, but they go through September at least. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, my goal is to try to come back here this summer sometime to catch that. I was able to do that last year and see some of the outdoor shows, and it's what a venue.
And then Lizard Boy is also here, which was
Yes.
a show that originated in Seattle also.
Yeah, Justin Huertas.
So they're in
composed music for
rehearsal
that.
right now, so that's going to be really
So
exciting.
plenty of reasons to come back,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things. It's a destination, but it's a destination you almost have to come to multiple times a year.
Well, it's kind of, if you can, it's
Yeah.
kind of great to be able to do that,
Yeah.
because that is the joy of the repertory, and also that there's new things opening, and then some shows will go out, and the solo shows this year have almost all have been, they all are Shakespeare adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
Solo shows, like or speak to Shakespeare in some way also.
Great. Yeah. So I don't think there's any doubt that the OSF tie to Shakespeare is going anywhere. So which is another reason to not stay off social media. What is the plan? So then, from a scheduling perspective, for next season, when does obviously I would imagine
The season got announced today.
Oh, it did.
Yes.
Wow. I'm here in town.
Yeah,
Lucky
you
as
should
that.
go look at the website. It just dropped this
I
afternoon.
will. Do you know what off the top of your head that we can talk
It's
about?
it's going to start with, there'll be 3 Shakespeares, Julius Caesar, and then we're doing As You Like It, and Merry Wives of Windsor. Merry Wives of Windsor will be on the outdoor stage.
Oh, great.
As You Like It will be in the Thomas. We're doing Fat Ham. That will be in the Thomas. Also, we're doing
Just saw that up at Seattle Rep.
Importance of Being Earnest. We are doing Quixote Nuevo, which was also at Seattle Rep. And but it'll be redone for the Thrust, for the Thomas and the Thrust.
Okay.
So even if you saw it up there, you should come back and see it here also, because I think it will be very different. We're doing Into the Woods, which was it'll be inspired by a production that was very popular. I forget how long ago, but we'll be revisiting many of the same things from that production in this version, and Shane, which is a new play, a contemporary play. It'll be a West Coast premiere by Karen Zacharias. And I'm forgetting one. Jitney, how could I forget? Tim Bond is going to be directing Jitney,
Okay.
continuing the commitment to the August Wilson cycle, to completing that cycle that OSF began.
Oh, wonderful.
With Tim, so.
That's great. And there's August Wilson, there's a Seattle tie in there, but there's this huge tie between Seattle and OSF. in your mind, is it strictly a geography thing, or is there another reason why there's that strong bond between the two?
Well, Tim Bond was, ran the group theater for many years, and before he came to be associate artistic director here in the late 90s, and was for 11 years he was the associate artistic director here. So there's that tie. So I think it's the people and the artists also. And I knew Tim from Seattle, not from his days at the group theater, but later when he was running the University of Washington Drama School. Well, he was running the acting and directing programs there. And so I think there is the tie of the artists from there. And it is partly geographic, but I think that Seattle artists are kind of amazing. And so I'm hoping that we'll be seeing more Seattle artists on our stages also, because I know so many great artists from there that I would love to bring here someday also.
Yeah, the theater community in Seattle is just amazing. Every show I see from the community level all the way up to the professional level, I'm just blown away every time.
And I think the great thing about OSF is that we bring artists from all over. We have strong ties to the Bay Area also, and to Chicago and Minneapolis, and our artists come from all over. When I came to work here for the first time, I met so many people from all over the nation, much more than I do sometimes in Seattle, because there are 4 rehearsals happening at the same time.
Sure.
And I met directors from all over also, which you don't get that. Usually you're in a theater and you're the only director there.
Well, it seems like a destination for actors and creatives too, not just for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I think the idea of rotating rep and of having a company in rotating rep, a company of performers that perform in multiple shows, that's not an easy thing to do.
No.
And it's intensely rewarding, I think, both for the artist and for an audience that comes to really know those artists and joy in watching them.
It's quite amazing to see one person in 2 or even 3 shows at a time. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that there's a bit role here where he or she just has to go on stage there's significant roles. So it takes a lot of talent, and I imagine a challenge, and it has to be rewarding.
Yeah, I think to be a repertory actor is a commitment. A commitment, and is you have to have a love for it also. Yeah.
Well, Rosa, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. I've got 3 shows over the next 2 days that I'm going to be checking out.
Yay!
So then try to get down later in the season to see some of the outdoor shows and some of the other offerings, including Lizard Boy. Because I never saw it when it was up in Seattle.
I didn't see it either, so I'm really excited to see it here also.
So, well, thank you, everyone. My guest here on, I guess, The Sound and Beyond for The Sound on Stage has been Rosa Joshi, the Associate Artistic Director here at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, OSF. I'm Greg Heilman with The Sound on Stage. And until the next time, I will see you at the stage door.